Hello, people of the interwebs. Welcome to another episode of Some Middle-Aged Man Wants to Go Screaming Across the Earth at 200 miles an hour but doesn't want to pay a $10,000 Cirrus annual every year. This is section 38, and it's going to be part 1. I'm not exactly sure how many parts there's going to be, but the rear window is such a steep learning curve and such an expensive piece to screw up. Not as expensive as a Canopy, but close. And so I decided I'm going to break this one up. Also, I don't think that people really want to watch a 20-minute episode. 11 minutes is probably enough to put you to sleep anyways. So the company that makes this window is called Airplanes Plastics, and I talked with Van's technical support, and they said look at section 5 and then also go to their website. Here's their website, and essentially it's telling you to use plexiglass bits and don't use anything that's going to chatter against the window. You can see that the recommended tool is smooth. The non-recommended have ways of possibly chattering against the window. All of that, okay, fine, makes sense. I don't particularly think that the plexiglass bits are like the smartest possible thing. 2 reasons. We'll get to that in a second. Here is their website, and whenever you go down their website, you'll see it has a link to a Rotary tool. And this is just me trying to show you how I found the proper tool. It essentially says there's a broken link. You can see down at the bottom there's a couple of tools that they recommend. I wanted to make sure that I was 100% accurate on the Rotary tool that they were trying to link. So essentially, I took the HTML line. Here in a second, you can see that I just essentially deleted pretty much everything that was within it, and took the Home Depot off the top of it so that I could figure out exactly what it was that they were trying to link to. So yeah, essentially you don't want anything that's going to chatter against the window. You want something that's going to be smooth, and this thing is relatively high speed, of which in the link they talk about being better than the alternative of low speed. And then you can see once the link finally opens here, the disc that comes with it is pretty much identical to the one that they link on their website. I zoom in here, but there's what you're looking for, and then that disc is what you're looking for. There's another disc that you can get with the tool that's made for composites, and normally one would think, oh, that's going to be great. It has kind of knobs on it that are going to make it chatter against the window. So there I am using said tool. I already had this tool, I just didn't have the wheel because the tool I purchased for cutting my fairings earlier on in the build, for the wing fairings. So anyways, you cut 2 notches in the back of the window, you put the window on, I put a sponge on the roll bar, not the roll bar, but whatever piece of aluminum that is that holds the roll bar up. You need some sort of way of keeping something against the rear aluminum of the rear window. My buddy Mike, as always, is here to help. Okay, and here we are, we're starting drilling. I bought multiple pieces of plexiglass from I think it was Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever. I tried multiple types of drill bits. Especially when you go to drilling into the roll bar, you need something that will drill through aluminum. So what I did is I essentially took the idea of a plexiglass bit, which is essentially it doesn't have anything that's going to essentially catch into the plexiglass. I took a number 40 drill bit and I just took it at a 45 degree on my grinding wheel, and I ground down my number 40 bit. So one of my number 40 bits just looks like hell, but it is incredibly dull, and it worked perfectly for getting through the plexiglass. Once I was through the plexiglass, then I had to take a normal number 40 bit and drill into the roll bar, because there was no way a dull 40 was going to go through that roll bar. Here I am tapping the holes that I had drilled. I am using some tap lubricant, and I was very worried about that. This lubricant did not craze or hurt the glass at all. You'll see, it used to be that Vans would recommend using Loctite on these screws whenever you did the final assembly. They no longer recommend that because it will craze the plastic and ruin it. It was a very touch and go moment on whether or not I was going to use anything like any type of lubricant for the tapping of those holes. But it worked out perfectly, and I didn't break a tap, which there's a lot of reports on Vans Air Force of people breaking taps. Here I'm trimming the front section of the window so that essentially it will line up properly along the shim of the roll bar hoop. You'll see I cover it up, then I cut, I cover it up, and I cut. I'm making sure that the window is at least 80 degrees, of which is reported at Section 5 and on Airplane Plastics website. So warmed my shop up to 80, but then I have that little square heater in there, making sure that that window stays at least 80 and that it's a uniform 80. Most of the time I was doing work, I was actually seeing somewhere in the neighborhood of 90 and 91, and I feel like that's even better. It really made the plexiglass quite pliable. Countersinking the holes for the dimpled aluminum on the back is what I'm doing right there. Yeah, this is all just rapid fire stuff. It's incredibly stressful. Every time I cut an edge of the window, then I would come back with 600 grit and finish with 3000 grit. Big shout out to multiple people on Vans Air Force. They were 1000% right. When you go to bevel the edge of that window, of which Section 5 says you have to do or else it will crack, using a cabinet scraper to bevel the edges of those windows was the easiest, smartest, greatest tool for doing that. Just go out there on Amazon, type in cabinet scrapers, just buy a set of cabinet scrapers. You will thank yourself profusely later for doing that. Now it's time for screwing, and I am gluing. I talked with Vans Technical Support. I forget his name at the moment, but technical support guy said, I said that I'm really looking towards gluing the window in, and he said absolutely. He does recommend that. He thinks it helps to reduce the possibility of cracks. We jumped ahead right here just real quick and put in the bar that actuates the pins for the canopy because it was just a lot easier with that rear window out. Okay, here's the big screw up coming up. We just put a line of sealant and we're putting in screws, and then we notice the bottom corners are not sitting in. And the reason is this piece right here, the 01474A-L. So everybody test fit your window once you install this piece, because the way that curves around towards the back end of the roll bar, the plexiglass was hitting that. And I'd already installed it, so my only option is to file down the top of that along its curvature. So that's what we're doing right there. We're filing down that. We put a new bead of sealant where we had squished some, and now we're reinstalling the window. But giant pro tip, if you follow the steps accurately like I did, there's not let me correct that. There is a test fit after you do the 2 notches in the back of the window, but After they have you test fit, then you install that piece in the bottom corners, and then essentially you don't test fit again. So make sure and test fit again. On the side here, I had a little bit of bulging. It was a very, very minor amount, but that's why we rolled that table up to the side and put those two pieces of wood there. And then here I'm just taking out extra sealant. If you notice, I did paint the canopy the same color as the roll hoop. The inside of the canopy, I painted the same color as the roll hoop. I'm very lucky that I did 3 layers, because the activator and the primer before using the Sika sealant essentially kind of messed with that paint. It messed with the first layer, but second and third layer that were adhered to the canopy still withstood the test of time. I hope this helps. I know it was a lot of information all at once, and we'll see you in part 2.